Today, we are celebrating the women leadership. So, without any further delay, let me tell you who our special guest is. With almost 15 years of experience, she is a business consultant, coach, and a change leader who supports ambitious organizations in improving their mindset, culture, and performance. She is on a mission to alter the way that we see change, empowering organizations and individuals to reframe it as an opportunity for incredible growth and lasting transformation. Having worked with some big names across a wide range of industries, she has a unique approach that looks at businesses holistically. She invites them to consider the things from a fresh perspective, bringing new innovative ideas and people centric approach on the table. It gives me a very great honor to introduce to you Anna Urbaniak.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Jaspreet. It's an honor to be here. I'm looking forward to sharing with you my journey, my story, and as much of it as we get to talk and exchange today.
Sure, Anna. And with this note, I would like to start this episode with the first question to you. So, that would be, what do you think helped you the most to make a career as a woman? What's the biggest factor that has helped you to be successful?
It's a big question, and the first thing that comes to mind is, before I even talk about what has helped me as a woman, I just want to kind of maybe share with you what were the biggest things that, when I reflect on where I am today, has helped me to get to where I am. And there are three. So number one is being open to learning, and especially working on myself. So I have confession to make. I am personal development addict and I'm not recovering. I really like the growth, and I really like this idea of constantly evolving and change and discovering different parts of myself. So being open to learning about myself, being open to learning from other people has massively helped me expand the horizons, and also better understand myself and who I am and where can I contribute most. The second thing is the courage to take risks and try new things. So my mom used to say, then when the devil cannot go somewhere, he will send me. So I always had this curious spirit that, like, you know, if there was something challenging, or there was something like this path least traveled, or like maybe you walk through the woods and there is a path and then you see something interesting, I will be the kind of kid who will run into the bushes, right? And I think that's really helped me, because I very often say yes to opportunities before even I figure out what is that I need to do and how do I face them. And the last thing that really just helped me, and I think can help other people, or is not to undervalue the fact that as a human beings we like to help, but very often, like, we held back from asking for help. So when we communicate with others what is that we aim for, what is that we strive for, what our dreams are, all of a sudden in the other human being there is this little light that sparkle to be like, hey, I know such and such, why don't you talk to them? Or I've read a book on this topic, or I recently saw a speaker who was talking about this, you should listen to her. So asking for help and openly communicating our goals will be the third thing that I think were the biggest factors in my career. But it is a Women's Day, and we're talking about what has helped me as a woman. That was the first part of your question. There are two things here. Number one is my intuition. So having these moments in life when I just feel I need to speak to someone, or I just feel drawn to someone, and I start the conversation and I end up meeting some really incredible people, or being able to help someone. I think that has really changed my career in the way that I was able to open this greater capacity for being able to connect to people. Right? And the second one is very much about that compassion, just because when we take the time to have that conversation with someone that we feel drawn to. Very often, we need to find that capacity to understand them, understand where they're coming from, understand how they might perceive us. And so having this kind of capacity for compassion, I would call it, is that feminine quality that I feel has really helped me in my career. Because yes, we do work in corporate environments, but at the end of the day, we work with humans. And it's that human to human connection that makes us go the extra mile and makes the results greater.
I think this is so nice to know the factors that indeed helped you to grow a successful career. But as a woman, also you shared so much, and the most perfect answer I could get is that there is never a range of learning. Like we can go on and on and on. So that is the most important part that I liked, and of course we are very inspired by hearing all of this, and we'll also try and incorporate it wherever required and wherever we feel like. So Anna, with this, I think I'll go to the second question that I have in my list. As a female leader, what has been the most significant barrier in your career? I mean, have you been confronted with the gender related roadblocks in a career or so? And what basic barriers did you face in your career as of now? Till now.
I know, and I often hear that this world or these workplaces are not the most female friendly, right? And females go through a lot of discrimination and a lot of challenges in the workplace. And if I think about the greatest roadblock in everything that I've experienced myself, right? And everyone's experience is different. For me, it will be my own self-doubt. It will be the story I keep telling myself. I recently, last summer, went on a retreat with another woman when we were doing some kind of self-discovery work and meditations and kind of talking through some of the things that I would like to improve. And I was trying to create this unshakable belief in myself. And we went through like different exercises and exploring what does it mean to be unshakable. And she asked me a question: so why this is not true for you yet? Like, why you're not there? Why you don't have that mindset? And the answer that came out from a very subconscious place was because I'm a woman. And that shocked me. It shocked me, but what also made me realize is that because it's the story I'm telling myself, because it's almost the limitations that have been programmed and conditioned into me, that, you know, as a woman, I should be like this and I should have this many children. I should be like that to my husband. I should run the house in that way. I should know my place. I should care about everyone else. I should keep quiet. I should be well spoken. I should not stand out. You should not speak in a certain way. And because I maybe at times own that story too much and don't take the time to actually question that story, I became the most limiting barrier to myself. Right? So I think that has been the biggest barrier in my career, is that, you know, it has been generations of portraying a certain role that women play in society, and it takes a lot of courage to question that. It takes a lot of courage and perseverance and hard work in order to tell a different story, because we're not just a one story. We have a lot to offer. We're all different. So that has been, very honest, the biggest barrier, the one that I create for myself. Have I encountered gender-related roadblocks in my career? I think one of the ones I encounter most frequently is mansplaining, will be my top one. And so mansplaining is basically when someone explains something either to you that you're actually an expert on, or someone reiterates your point, and is very often a man. And it's a funny word, mansplaining. It's like man explains better than woman. So I think that's what I encountered the most in the workplace and in my career. but it's also, I like to see things that I encounter, even if they're negative, I like to see them as opportunities to grow and learn. So this particular one is something that over the last couple of years, I've been really trying to like shoehorn and understand what is in my communication style, what is in my articulation of my ideas, what kind of language I use, that my ideas don't come across as clear for other people to understand. So as frustrating as something gets, I think these moments of frustrations are often the gift for us to grow from. And so that's how I like to look at them.
That's true, Anna. Also, the fact how to cross or jump over those obstacles that you face, as you said, is the most important thing, and that is what makes you the successful as a woman and as a person also. So
And you know what, Jaspreet, I think it's really important to say it is hard work, right? Like facing up to stereotypes is hard work. The amount of times I needed to have conversation with my own parents is like, I don't have children, and you know what? My age is not an issue yet, right? Because there's this expectation they want grandchildren, right? And this is like the simple thing, but I think it's the one we as a woman, especially of our age, can very strongly relate to. Like, there is pressure, right? And standing up to that takes a lot of courage and a lot of working on the confidence in ourselves, being just like, we appreciate that, but our heart is calling in a different direction, and let us go and follow our heart in terms of what is that we need in our lives right now, and own it.
that's true. Follow your heart. That's true. So I think correctly, I just agree that it just is in our inner self somewhere. So if it takes us to the right thing and we follow that, I think we can reach anywhere we want. And with this, I think I'll move to the next question, Anna. So what mistakes do you think you have made along the way, that and what did you learn from them? I mean, in your career or in life as a woman?
Where do I begin? I learned it from someone. They said that the only reasons that we're good at what we do is because we messed up enough times, and finally we've learned from messing it up. If I was to make one point around, not maybe necessarily one mistake, but a theme that for me has been reoccurring in some shape or form, is not trusting myself and not trusting my intuition. And I give you two examples of that. So one example was staying in the job for too long when I knew that my soul was calling for change and my soul was calling for more. Like I wanted something more challenging, or I wanted something different, or I felt bored, and kind of for different reasons I held into what I had. I held into that comfort zone for too long until it got so uncomfortable that either my health issues or something else like literally became a trigger. But I think there's like this period when like we have this calling, we know we've got to take a leap, but we hold on to what's familiar. So not trusting that kind of intuition, that feeling. And then the second example of it is on the same theme, but in a little bit of a different way, is actually almost like agreeing to do something that I don't want to do, but I do it out of politeness. And as I'm agreeing to do something, I already feel it like, why did I just say yes? Right? And then it ended up being like forcing myself to do something only to prove because I've committed. Right? And it's not necessarily that the outcome is not successful, or it's not necessarily that I can't do what I've promised, but it doesn't bring me joy, and it becomes this kind of very heavy, big task above my head of something that I have to do for someone because I've promised. right? So again, not kind of trusting that feeling that just like, the moment I, like, it's okay, we make mistakes, I agreed to do something and maybe I'm not the best person, or maybe I don't have capacity to help with this, and just trusting that feeling and maybe going back to say, listen, I know I said yes, but I might not be the best person for this, let me find someone better, or how could we maybe do this together, or could we think of maybe different angles, so actually what you asked me to do can more align with my strengths. So I think this notion of like not trusting the kind of the feeling, or not trusting myself, will be where most of my mistakes originate from.
Yeah, Anna. But where you started from, I mean, the first point that you gave really reminded me of that saying that, Thomas Edison, when he was making bulb, like he failed so many times. And when people asked, he said that I didn't fail. Even I found, I mean, 2000 such ways from which the bulb is not made. So the thing you started from, that even if that the thing that gives you joy, the first point that you said, the thing that gives you joy and you want to do it, even if you fail in that, you'll keep on doing it until you achieve it. And the second thing, that you should trust yourself, you should trust your instincts. If you think that you're best person for something, you should go for it. If somewhere that thing holds you from inside, I think, yeah, you should appoint a better person. I think it's a nice thing to hear from you.
You reminded me of
Yeah. So
I'm originally Polish, so I'm from Poland, and we have a saying in Poland, which goes, if they chuck you out of the door, you get in through the windows. Right? That
right.
perseverance that you're talking about, right? Like when we have these hard callings, we want something, we continue to look for what those opportunities are, and they might not be straightforward. So if they chuck you
Right.
out through the door, you try the windows.
Nice, Anna. It is actually going very well. I mean, talking to you, it is so inspirational. I think the next thing that I would like to ask you is, what are some patterns that you've noticed over the years about the women at work? I think, and the things that they could be doing better to advance their careers.
um, this one is a tough question, because there is something that I have noticed recently, and it feels very close to my heart, but I yet find it quite difficult to find the right language to talk about it in a way that it can be accepted. So I'm going to give it a go for the first time. So the pattern that I've noticed is that very often women at the workplace feel like they have to become more like men to be successful. Right? And I feel that in doing so, the qualities that the world need more of get lost. Right? The world becomes very uncertain place. The world becomes very fast. There's always change. And in the face of change, people face emotion. The deep emotion come up and we struggle, right? Like the statistics around the mental health and burnout at work are skyrocketing. Like, something like 70 to 80% of people get burned out, are exhausted in their current position. Right? And in order to address some of this stuff, we don't need to go harder on them. We don't need better objectives. We don't need higher targets. We don't need more milestones. We don't need more trainings and more productivity. Right? In order to cure some of those things, in order to help people to live through and become better, is to bring more of listening, more of nurturing, more of support, more of conversations, more of talking about the things that are maybe not strictly related to work, but help us to become better people, helping people to work through the emotions they experience in difficult meetings. Why do they fear to give a presentation? Right? And rather than, and those are some of the qualities that both men and women have. I don't want to say that, and I think this is when perhaps said to you at the beginning, I am still discovering the right language to talk about it, because it's not stricter to say that females are by default better than men. Maybe they have some predispositions for it because of how our roles traditionally evolved. But men have that capacity too. I know some incredible men leaders who will pull you aside and say, hey, are you doing okay? In that meeting, was that all right? Or I have a fantastic male colleagues who, when they saw I wanted to make a point, they created this space. They lended me the privilege to say, I think Anna would like to contribute to this conversation that was full of men, right? So I don't want to genderize the qualities, but I think that in the workplaces that we become, the pattern that I see is that females see the only path to success is becoming more, not like men, but demonstrating more masculine and strict and kind of businessy driven qualities, while what workplaces really need to be successful, and you ask me how can they advance their career, is to show more vulnerability, is to listen, is to create the space for addressing difficult things, is to create communities around the certain issues that people are facing. And I think, there is a lot of really grand female leaders out there that talk about female leadership and vulnerability as a superpower. They talk about importance of listening, importance of addressing emotions. And I think that this is how we can advance not only the career of a woman, but also how we can advance organizations. Because organizations are really, it feels like they're crumbling. Because if the organizations are producing such a chronic health issues in so many people, that something that they're doing is not quite right. And especially that those statistics are increasing, and over a long period of time they're getting worse and worse, talking about they're not getting better in the last 20 years. Then I think we need to really ask ourselves, what is that we're doing wrong? And it's not only the individuals, but actually the system. So I think female or more leadership with the qualities that these organizations and this world need is the female's opportunity to step up the game. Did that make sense? I'm just very conscious. My first time talking about it, so I wonder if that made sense.
Yeah, Anna. Somewhere, I think, yeah, that is true. I think everybody is built with the uniqueness in themselves. So that is something very true that you talked about. We should be doing the things how we are meant to do it, not be competing with someone or trying to be like someone. So that is I totally agree with that statement, I would say. And we should also try and be ourselves and try and do the best we can being ourselves. With this, I think the next question that I would like to ask you is, what advice would you give to the next generation of female leaders? I think we have already talked a lot about it, but still, yeah, we'll
we
again
did.
go with it. Yeah.
And what you said, I think, just summarizes it the best way. So you said, Jaspreet, about being the best that you can be, showing your uniqueness. And so what I wanted to say is it's exactly it. Is if you have a gift, if there's something you believe in, if there is something that you want, go and create it. You are a creator, right? You're a creator of opportunities. Go and tell people, go after it. Because that story I was telling you about, my old self-doubt, how it's the story that I'm telling myself is becoming most limiting. I've noticed it get worse with age. When I was 20 or 22, that didn't matter. I just had this fire in me of I want to change the world. I want to do this. I wanted to study overseas. And my father said to me, are you out of your mind? I'm not going to sell our house to pay for your tuition fees. Because that was the difference between studying in the UK versus living in Poland back in the early 2000s. And it didn't matter to me. I felt like, no, that's what I want. I want to become a diplomat and I'm going to go and study in London. And my father was like tearing his hair out of his head. But that didn't stop me. I just had such a strong belief in what I wanted to create for myself, the kind of life I wanted to live. So the next generation of female leaders use that fire, because the light will put it slowly, slowly down out of you. If you're anything like me, you might be much better. But you are creators, so go and be the unique self, go and contribute to what you believe in, go and contribute the gifts, the talents, the skills that you have. That's my best advice for you today.
These are some of the very wonderful lines that I've heard, like in last few years, I would say. So,
Oh, thank you.
so do you, I mean, do or did you have a women leader as a mentor, or are there any specific women who inspired you? And I would like to ask you, why would you like
Mm.
like to talk about them? Yeah.
So there is a one very special woman in my life. Well, was. She's not around anymore. And that was my grandmother. And so my grandmother was the source of unconditional love for me. And if I think about, in terms of like mentorship, or what is that I have learned from her, what are the qualities that as a child I kind of grew up with that helped me in my career, is that she gave amazing hugs when I most needed them. So talking about that compassion. And so that made me into a hugger. So if we were in person, you'll be getting a massive hug at the end of this interview. But there were two other things that I think are very relevant to the world today. The number one was that she listened. So with my grandmother, I felt like whatever I was going through as a young teenager, so I mostly remember her around the time when I was like 12, 15, 16, she would always listen to what I have to say. She will never judge me. She would never make it just this kind of, oh, you're just a kid with a little story. We will have full-on conversations. And then the second thing that she did is she would then tell me stories to help me to understand life. So she will always have an analogy, or she will always have a personal story, or she will have always like a tale or a myth to share. And I remember those long conversations with her when she listened, when we cried, when we laughed, when we cuddled, and I love staying with her. So I think she definitely filled up that bucket of the good qualities in me as a human being as I was much younger. Through my more adult career, I actually had a lot of really amazing men mentors. So there hasn't been a female mentor, but I have been very fortunate to come across really well balanced men who were very empowering, who were very aware of the kind of gender biases in the workplace, and as I mentioned before, who have often lended me the privilege. So they saw often the potential in me, they saw what I have to offer. Sometimes they believe in me more than I believed in myself, and they just kind of created opportunity, or gave me a little push, or gave me the feedback I needed. So my mentors has mainly been men, and I think men have an amazing role to play in kind of bringing that what would you call it, not necessarily bringing the females up, but it's actually creating more equality and bringing more of the gender equality into the workplace. And it's not just gender, but also actually creating the room for dealing with uncertainty, for dealing with emotions, for dealing with well-being, for dealing with growth and the pains of growth, right? We all go through the pains of growth when we need a good mentor, or we need a good friend. So I think that awake and aware men can be one of the most incredible resources in order to create space for more women at the workplace.
Great, Anna. So you had some wonderful people, including your grandmother. I think that is the special one for everyone here. So that is the most important thing, that we need some push and support and someone to hear whenever we are talking, whenever we are oozing our heart out. And I
Mm.
think that part only completes some of the things in us which we are now. So that is nice to hear again. So You're undoubtedly busy. So, how do you take care of yourself and maintain a good mental health, Anna?
I have help. I have help. If I was left to be my own boss, I probably will be quite bad one. Talking about that masculine qualities, right? Being busy, being ambitious, being demanding of yourself, guilty. And the help I get is my teacher and friend number one is my dog. And because he's a big dog and he needs a lot of walks, he does get me out of the house at least once or twice a day. And because he loves running in the woods, then we've got to go somewhere when there is an open space and I can take him off the lead, which means just like popping into the local forest or going onto like the sports field that is just across my house. So that helps. So being in nature generally just helps being able to get out of the head and just go into more of the open space and your body and breathe fresh air. So that's definitely one. Another thing, how I maintain good mental health is that through my personal development journey, I have learned a really big lesson quite recently, is that the emotions we experience are our teachers. And they show themselves to us in order to help us to heal it, right? And we can always we can only address and heal what we experience if we create a space to actually feel those emotions. And that starts with being seen and being heard. It's almost like those emotions that is kind of little parts of us that maybe haven't been seen as a children or haven't been heard in a meeting or maybe haven't been asked for an opinion, and then certain situations, often at work, trigger us, right? And when they trigger us and when that trigger becomes disproportional to an event, it means there is something to work on. So the way that I address this when any kind of emotional health things come up, and they do come up, right? Like the anxiety, the stress, feeling overwhelmed, feeling frustrated, feeling unsupported, those emotions come up from time to time, is that when they come up, I do surround myself with people who can help. So although I offer coaching, I have people that I go to get coaching support from. I've got people who are therapists or healers, and I try to trust that intuition that what I need today is just a massage. So I will go to a massage therapist. And I'm just like, more than anything, I feel something in my neck. I just need to have some me time. Sometimes it might be like the other day, I felt very frustrated over some kind of piece of work I was doing, and that frustration felt very disproportional to the event. And then I started uncovering something with my communication coach, and then it worked out that it had something to do with not feeling supported in the past. And I'm just like, oh my God, I never thought about it like that. So I tend to use any triggering events at work as an opportunity to work on myself, and then surround myself with people who can help me with that, because I found that it's not a very easy road to walk alone. And as much as I often do and offer that support to the people and the teams and the managers that I work with when I help them to introduce changes in the organization, it's a very different thing to do it for yourself. It's like what they say, a mechanic always drives a broken car and a hairdresser always have a messy hair. And I think it's one of those things. If you don't find a mechanic to fix your car, and if you don't find a hairdresser to take care of your hair, then you'll be the one with those problems. So that's how I deal with it.
It's lovely hearing you, Anna. It's very lovely. I mean, this is so good to talk to you and hear so many good experiences that you had. But we have to go on. So, the next thing that I would like to ask you is, how should women support other women in their organizations?
So the part of that question asks how they should, and I would love to twist that question. I think twist that question back to whichever woman is listening, and ask yourself two questions. The first one will be, how can you support? What is that you have that maybe other women don't, that you can offer? So what is that you have to offer? And that, I think, will be the first starting point, because some of the women listening will have a position from which they can offer an opportunity to speak, an opportunity to facilitate a meeting, an opportunity to present, an opportunity to be a mentor for someone. Other women just might be very good at listening, or very good at dealing with difficult situations, and they will be the ones who can just go and give you the support, be like, hey, you didn't seem okay to me, do you want to grab a coffee? Right? Another woman might be very, very well spoken, very articulative. And when in the meeting she will see someone who is struggling to express the point, she can help to articulate, or she can pat that person on the back and say, I don't know if you've noticed, but when you say maybe, or when you say, I'm not sure if this is a good idea, you have undermined your idea already. Maybe you can try a different language, like one idea that could help in this situation, rather than maybe it can help. So one idea that can help, or this has been helpful in the past, it can be helpful here. Or I've seen the results of. So, depending on your skill, ask yourself, how is it you can offer that help? But there is a second part of that question, and is also thinking about, what help do you need? Right? So as a female, what would be helpful? What support do you need? And voice that. It's very difficult to read your mind. So even if I wanted to offer the help to you, Jaspreet, unless I can understand what is that you struggle with, what kind of things would you like, is we can create a lot of different platforms or a lot of different initiatives that might not take off. So perhaps one of the best things to maybe start that conversation in the organization is to get a bunch of women together and just take two pieces of sheet or two colors of post-its and just anonymously write, what is that I need and what is that I have to offer, and then just do a little bit of speed dating. Right? So the persons that actually are offering something, and there's the other person that needs something, they can match those opportunities up and start creating either forums of conversations or one-to-one support. I think that will be a great starting point, because we are all different and we need different things at different times in our lives, and also at different times in our careers. And you might involve men too, but you asked me about what women and women can do. And I think there's something magical. I very recently, for the first time in my life, experienced sitting in something called Women's Circle. I've never sat. Have you ever sat in a woman's circle? No. It was very interesting. It was a meditation, and it was just for women. And it was about 20 women, and all we did is we kind of sat down, we opened up by introducing ourselves, and then the facilitator guided us through a meditation. It was all about I actually did it as a celebration for Women's Day, but I did it on Sunday, which is last Sunday. And then she guided us through the meditation. And then she asked us for reflections, if you wanted to share, not wanting to share. And I've never experienced that before, but there is something very much like holding you in the space of just women. Feels very different, felt very non-judgmental, felt very loving, also felt very, what would I call it? Peaceful. Just like realizing that we all want similar things in life, and then we all went through very similar experiences. And although this world forces us to make ourselves see so separate from one another, perhaps we're not quite separate as we think we are. Because listening all of those different women in that circle is just like, yeah, I felt like that, or yes, I also would love more of that in my life. So something magical about women supporting other women.
Yeah. So we should also plan an activity like these. I mean, that would be really helpful in knowing each other, learning about each other, learning about all the uniqueness and the similar things that we have. So I think we'll also try and plan certain things like these and activities like these. So this comes to the last question that I have for you. What advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
That's a very good question. What was I doing when I was 25? I know. The advice I would give to a 25-year-old self would be older doesn't always mean wiser. And let me explore that. I'm not saying I'm not wiser than I was, although one can read it that way. So when I was in my 20s, I looked up to people in a position, or to people in a certain role, or to people of a certain age a lot. And sometimes I felt that even though the thing maybe they were saying or the way they behaved was not right, it didn't feel right, just felt like, oh, like that doesn't feel like the right thing to do. What I did in my head, I would question myself first and foremost. Maybe it's something you don't understand, and maybe that's how you should behave in that role. And maybe when you get older, you will understand. And what it led to is that I spent a lot of time in my head trying to almost battle with myself, because on one hand I'm just like, oh, but that doesn't feel right. On the other hand, I was just like, but they are where they are because of their age, because of their experience, so they must be doing something right that you don't understand. That was my head. And I think now on reflection, what I've learned is that older just sometimes means that people just had more time to do the same over and over again. And the same might not always be better. It might be still just, might be different, might be wrong, might be just the same. And the fact that they have spent 20 or 30 years more doing more of the same doesn't always make them wiser. And there was this saying that the difference between knowledge and wisdom is that knowledge is knowing what to say. Wisdom is knowing when to listen. Right? And I was then asked, and now if I reflect, it's how do we acquire wisdom? And I feel that wisdom is not acquired by, aging or by roles or by education. I feel like we acquire wisdom in life by really living that life to the fullest, by experiencing new things, by facing our fears, by admitting our mistakes, by listening to our emotion, by listening to emotions of others and trying to listen and understand to others, and actually just by having this willingness in ourselves, change ourselves. And that's where the wisdom comes from, that we are able to reflect on something that used to be true for us, and we've learned along the way it's no longer true, but we also appreciate that what's true for us might not be true for someone else, and we know sometimes when to listen and let them walk rather than enforcing our own beliefs on them. So to summarize, older doesn't always mean wiser, the 25-year-old Anna.
That is actually advice the 25-year-old so many girls will be watching this video, to be very honest. So now on this concluding note, I would say, Anna, this was very, very, very special and an insightful talk with you. Thank you for joining and squeezing this episode in your busy schedule and to share so much of your inspirational journey. And here I would like to give this open mic to you.
Open mic. Well, thank you so much for the invitation and having me. It has been an absolute pleasure to share part of myself with you, whoever you are, the listener. As I did mention, we all very different and unique, and at the same time we all so similar. So I just hope that there was something in this interview, just one thing, that inspired you to maybe do differently, maybe to be kinder to yourself, maybe to go and give a hand to someone else. So I hope there was a seed in this little interview that you can take and grow into a beautiful tree with the beautiful flowers, beautiful fruits that will feed the generations to come.
Of course, Anna. We'll get a lot from this interview. You have given a lot. So, if I would like to add the last note to our viewers who are watching this. If you like this video, please do hit the like button and share it with your contacts for more such content from JioEvents Studio on tech, cultural, and insightful talks. Do subscribe our channel and follow us on all of your social media handles. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to never miss any update on JioEvents. Adios and see you in the next one.
Thank you. See you.